A 13-year-old found a man bleeding beside a crashed motorcycle on a deserted road. The stranger couldn't remember his own name, but when rival bikers started hunting for a traitor in hiding, Elliot realized he might be protecting someone dangerous. Or was he saving an innocent man from a deadly conspiracy? The truth would put both their lives on the line. The September sun hung low when Elliot Turner took the back road home from school, his sneakers kicking up dust as he walked the same route he'd taken 1,000 times before. He preferred this path. No neighbors to report back to his father that Elliot looked lazy or distracted. Out here he could breathe. That's when he saw the wreckage. The Harley-Davidson was on its side in the ditch, chrome scratched and handlebars twisted at an unnatural angle. Elliot's heart jumped. He scanned the road, expecting to see someone flagging down help, but there was nothing except silence and the smell of motor oil. Then he saw him. A man sprawled in the tall grass 20 feet from the bike, motionless. Elliot's instinct was to run for help, but something made him freeze. The man's leather vest was torn, his face bruised and streaked with dried blood. Elliot crouched beside him, hands shaking as he pressed 2 fingers against the man's neck the way he'd seen in movies. A pulse. Faint but there. Elliot had taken a basic first aid course at school the year before. Most of it was a blur except the part about checking for a pulse. "Hey," Elliot whispered, shaking his shoulder gently. "Can you hear me?" The man's eyes fluttered open, unfocused and wild. He tried to sit up, groaned, and collapsed back down. His lips moved, but no sound came out at first. Then, hoarse and broken, Where am I?" "You crashed," Elliot said, glancing around nervously. "I need to call someone." "No." The word came out sharp, almost panicked. The man grabbed Elliot's wrist with surprising strength. "No police. Please, no hospital. If I show up hurt," the man added, his voice low, "my name goes into a system, and the people who did this to me, they'll know exactly where to find me." Elliot's pulse quickened. "You're hurt. You need... I don't know who I am." The words hung in the air like smoke. Elliot stared at him, not sure if he'd heard right. The man's eyes were clearer now, but they held something Elliot recognized, fear. "You don't remember your name?" The man shook his head slowly, wincing at the movement. "Nothing. I can't remember anything." Elliot should have run, called 911, let adults handle it. But something in the man's voice held him there, raw vulnerability his father would have called weakness. The motorcycle magazines hidden under Elliot's bed, those dreams of freedom he never spoke aloud, suddenly felt less like fantasy. This stranger needed help, and Elliot couldn't walk away. "There's a shed," Elliot said quickly. "Behind my house. Nobody uses it. You can stay there while you figure things out." The man studied him with a mix of gratitude and suspicion. "Why would you help me?" Elliot didn't have a good answer. "Because nobody else will." Getting the man to the shed took longer than expected. He limped badly, stopping twice to catch his breath. By the time they reached the weathered structure hidden behind overgrown bushes, dusk had settled and Elliot's shirt clung to his back. The shed smelled of old wood and dust. Elliot cleared space, spread tarps, brought water from the garden hose. Then he dragged the motorcycle deeper into the brush, saddlebags still attached. That night, after his father had finished dinner and retreated to the living room with his beer and television, Elliot snuck back out with food, a first aid kit and a flashlight. The man was awake, sitting against the wall with his head in his hands. "I brought your bags," Elliot said, setting them down. "Maybe there's something inside that'll help." Together, they went through the contents, road maps with handwritten notes, a toolkit, cigarettes, until Elliot found a worn leather wallet tucked into an inner pocket with a driver's license inside. "Lance Stone," Elliot read aloud, squinting at the photo. It matched. Same sharp jaw, same dark eyes, though the man in the picture looked healthier, more alive. Age 38. Address in Ridgefield. Lance took the license, staring at it like it belonged to a stranger. "I don't recognize it. The name, the face, it's like looking at someone else." Elliot pulled out his phone and typed the name into a search engine. Nothing came up. No social media profiles, no news articles, no trace of Lance Stone anywhere online. It was as if he didn't exist outside that laminated card. That's weird, Elliot muttered. Everyone's online. They kept searching. At the bottom of the saddlebag, beneath spare gloves and a rain jacket, Elliot found the leather vest, damaged but recognizable. The back patch showed a skull with wings and the words Road Cursed MC, stitched in faded silver thread. Road Cursed, Elliot said, turning the vest over. That's your club. Lance touched the patch carefully, like it might burn him. I don't remember them. Elliot searched for the club online. The Road Cursed Motorcycle Club had a bare-bones website, chapter locator, generic mission statement, a P.O. box. No member photos. No mention of Lance Stone. We could try calling them, Elliot suggested, though his voice wavered with doubt. Lance shook his head. Not yet. Why not? They're your people. Maybe. Lance pulled something else from the bag. A crumpled piece of paper with handwriting scrawled across it. He read it aloud. Don't trust the one wearing your colors. The words sent a chill down Elliot's spine. What does that mean? I don't know. But someone wanted me to remember it. Lance looked up, his expression dark. What if they did this to me? What if someone from my own club tried to kill me? Elliot didn't have an answer. He just knew that calling the road cursed without knowing who to trust could be dangerous. For both of them. Before leaving, Elliot asked the question that had been nagging at him all evening. Why don't you want the police involved? Lance was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, because I don't know what I did. And until I do, I can't risk finding out the hard way. Elliot nodded and slipped back through the darkness toward his house, the note's warning echoing in his mind. 3 days passed before Lance spoke more than a few words. Elliot brought food, water, bandages, watching physical wounds heal while something deeper stayed broken. Lance stared at the wallet, the vest, the note, as if willing his memory to return. The fourth morning brought a breakthrough. Elliot arrived at the shed to find Lance pressed against the far wall, breathing hard, his eyes wide with terror. A metal bucket had tipped over near the door, and the sound of it scraping against the wooden floor seemed to have triggered something primal in him. Lance? Elliot approached slowly, the way he'd approach a wounded animal. What happened? I heard it, Lance gasped, his voice raw. Metal scraping. I was back there on the road. Engines everywhere, surrounding me. I couldn't get away. It was just the bucket, Elliot said gently, righting it. You're safe here. But Lance wasn't listening. His hand gripped his head as fractured images flashed behind his eyes. Someone forced me off the road. Bikes closing in, my tires losing grip. I thought I was going to die. Elliot sat down across from him, giving him space. So the crash wasn't an accident. No. Lance's jaw tightened. Someone wanted me gone. Over the next few days, flashbacks came more frequently. Slammed doors sent Lance into cold sweats. Distant engines made his hands shake. His body remembered what his mind couldn't. One evening, Lance pulled off his shirt to rewrap a bandage. Elliot noticed the tattoo immediately, a large design on his left shoulder, so faded it looked ghostly. The ink had bled and blurred as if decades old. That's the same skull, Elliot said, pointing. From your vest. But it's so faded. Lance twisted to look at it in the small mirror Elliot had brought. The design was barely visible. A winged skull with the letters R and C beneath it. The lines soft and washed out like an old photograph left in the sun. How long does it take for a tattoo to fade like that? Elliot asked. Lance stared at the faded ink for a long moment. I don't remember choosing this, he said slowly, but I must have stopped taking care of it. Long rides under the sun. No touch-ups. He shook his head, unsettled. Whatever I was running from, I didn't want to wear it on my skin anymore. The thought unsettled them both. Why would someone deliberately let their club tattoo fade? Why distance yourself from an identity you'd literally marked on your skin? That afternoon, trouble arrived. At the gas station, Elliot overheard two men near the pumps, rival club, judging by their vests. One showed a photo to the clerk. Seen this guy? the biker asked. Goes by Lance, or used to. Stole from his brothers and ran. There's money in it if you know where he is. Elliot's blood went cold. He kept his head down, grabbed his items and left quickly, his heart hammering in his chest. When he told Lance, the man's face went pale. What did they say exactly? That you're a traitor. That you stole something and ran. Lance shook his head slowly. I don't know if that's true. That's the problem. I can't defend myself because I don't know what I did. The uncertainty ate at him. Elliot could see it in the way Lance stared at his faded tattoo, the way he read and reread that warning note. Was he a victim or a criminal? The line between the two felt terrifyingly thin. 2 days later, Elliot found a small silver necklace tucked in Lance's jacket lining. Delicate chain, tiny butterfly charm, clearly meant for a child. Lance took it with trembling hands, held it to the light. Tears formed in his eyes. Do you remember? Elliot asked softly. No. Lance's voice cracked. But I feel something. Like this matters. Like someone's waiting for me to come back. Maybe you have a daughter. Lance closed his fist around the necklace. Or maybe I took this from someone. Maybe that's what I stole. The possibility hung between them like a weight. What kind of man forgets his own child? Elliot sat beside Lance in the growing darkness, both wondering. When the truth surfaced, would it be worth remembering? Outside, wind rattled the shed's loose boards. Somewhere in town, the rival bikers continued their search. At home, Elliot's father had started noticing missing food, Elliot's absences. The questions grew sharper. Elliot knew he was running out of time to keep his secret, but he also knew he couldn't abandon Lance. Not when the man had no one else, and not when the truth about who he really was remained a dangerous mystery neither of them could solve alone. The rival bikers didn't leave town. They set up at the motel on Route 9, asking questions everywhere. Elliot saw their motorcycles outside the Bluebird Cafe, 6 bikes, gleaming and threatening. Flyers in the window showed Lance's license photo. Reward for information. That night, Elliot told Lance they needed answers before someone else provided them. We have to figure out where you were going, Elliot said, spreading the contents of the saddlebag across the shed floor. You weren't just riding randomly. You had a destination. Lance picked through the items with renewed focus. The road maps were worn at the creases, certain routes highlighted in yellow marker. One map showed a path from Ridgefield, the address on his license, to a town called Grayson Mills, about 3 hours north. Several gas station receipts matched stops along that route, all dated 2 weeks ago. Grayson Mills, Lance said slowly, as if testing whether the name would unlock something. Didn't. What's there? Elliot searched it on his phone. Not much. Population 4,000. Looks like farm country mostly. He scrolled further. Wait, there's a road-cursed MC chapter listed there. Grayson Mills is their home base. Lance's expression shifted. So I was heading home. Or running away from it, Elliot countered, remembering the warning note. We still don't know which. They analyzed every detail. A motel receipt halfway between Ridgefield and Grayson Mills. A torn photograph showing a motorcycle wheel and garage door. A lawyer's business card with a phone number scrawled on back. You were collecting evidence, Elliot said. Lance stared at the items, his jaw tight. Evidence of what? Before Elliot could answer, his phone buzzed. A text from his father. Where are you? Home. Now. Elliot's stomach dropped. I have to go. We'll figure this out tomorrow. But tomorrow came faster than either of them expected. Elliot's father was waiting in the kitchen when he walked in, arms crossed, face hard as stone. You want to tell me what you've been doing every night for the past week? Nothing, Elliot said quickly. Just walking, thinking. Don't lie to me. His father stepped closer. Mrs. Chun saw you carrying food toward the old shed. What's back there? Elliot's mind raced. I've been feeding a stray dog. It's hurt. And I didn't think you'd let me keep it. His father studied him, skepticism written across every feature. Show me. Elliot's heart hammered. It's skittish. If we both go. Now, Elliot. They walked through the backyard in tense silence, flashlight beams cutting through the darkness. Elliot prayed Lance had heard them coming, that he'd hidden or slipped away. But when his father pushed open the shed door, Lance was standing there in the center of the space, hands raised slightly, making no attempt to run. "What the hell is this?" His father's voice went low and dangerous. "Dad, please, you brought a biker onto my property?" His face flushed. "You have any idea what these people do? He's hurt. He has amnesia. I don't care if he's the Pope. Get in the house. Now." "Mr. Turner," Lance said quietly, his voice steady despite the situation. "Your son saved my life. I'm not here to cause trouble." "You already did." Elliot's father pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the sheriff." "No." Elliot grabbed his father's arm. "You don't understand. There are people looking for him. Bad people. If you call the cops, they'll find him." "Good. Let them have him." And then Lance's legs buckled. He grabbed the workbench for support as his face contorted in pain. Not physical, but something deeper. His eyes went distant, and when he spoke, his voice was different, clearer, as if a fog had suddenly lifted. "James," Lance whispered, staring at Elliot's father. "James Turner." Elliot's father froze. "How do you know my name?" "Your brother," Lance said, memories flooding back in painful waves. "Daniel Turner. The hit and run, 15 years ago. Route 7, just outside Millbrook." The color drained from Elliot's father's face. "What did you say?" Lance stumbled forward, catching himself. I remember everything." He looked at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. "My name is Lance Stone. I'm road cursed MC, 12 years patched in. And the crash, it wasn't an accident. Someone tried to kill me because I found out the truth." "What truth?" Elliot asked, his voice barely a whisper. Lance met Elliot's father's eyes directly. "There's a group impersonating my club. They've been committing crimes wearing our colors, destroying our reputation. Armed robberies, drug trafficking, things we'd never touch. I discovered documents proving it, photos of the fake members, financial records linking them to a rival organization. I was writing back to warn my chapter, to show them the evidence before the feds came down on us for crimes we didn't commit." Elliot's father's hands were shaking. "What does that have to do with my brother?" "The hit and run that killed him," Lance said, his voice heavy with understanding. "It was blamed on a road-cursed member, wasn't it? Someone saw the vest and reported it. They never caught him," Elliot's father said bitterly. "But witnesses said it was your club's colors. That's why He stopped, the pieces falling into place. "They were fakes. Even back then. It's been going on for years," Lance said. "Slowly, methodically, turning law enforcement and the public against us. And I'm the only one who can prove it." Elliot's father stood motionless, 15 years of grief and hatred warring with the truth standing before him. "The evidence," Lance continued, "it's hidden in my bike, in a compartment under the seat. But those men looking for me, they're part of it. If they find me before I reach Grayson Mills, everyone I care about goes down for crimes they never committed." The silence in the shed stretched for what felt like an eternity. James Turner stood frozen, his flashlight beam steady on Lance's face, processing everything he just heard. Finally, he lowered the phone. "The bike still here?" he asked, his voice rough. Lance nodded. "Hidden in the brush behind the property. But the compartment lock requires a key I don't have anymore. We'd need tools to get it open." "The scrapyard impounded a wrecked Harley 3 days ago," James said slowly. "I heard about it at the hardware store. If yours was reported, it's probably there by now." Elliot's eyes widened. "Then we have to get it before the men looking for him figure out where it is," James finished. He looked at his son, really looked at him, and something shifted in his expression. "You should have told me. You would have turned him in," Elliot said quietly. James didn't deny it. Instead, he turned back to Lance. "These people who are after you, how dangerous are they?" "Dangerous enough to run me off the road and leave me for dead," Lance said. "And smart enough to frame an entire motorcycle club for federal crimes." If they know the evidence exists, they'll do anything to destroy it. James was quiet for another moment. Then he made his decision. My truck's out front. We leave in 5 minutes. The drive to Kowalski's scrapyard took 20 minutes, but it felt longer. Lance sat in the back seat, watching the dark roads pass, while Elliot kept checking the side mirror for headlights that might be following them. James drove in tense silence, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Why'd you let your tattoo fade? James asked suddenly. If you were loyal to your club, why let it disappear? Lance touched his shoulder reflexively. I didn't let it fade on purpose. I think part of me was trying to protect them. The further I stayed from the club visibly, the less attention I'd draw. But I never stopped being road-cursed. That's why I was coming back. The scrapyard was surrounded by chain-link fence topped with barbed wire. A dim security light illuminated the entrance, but the main yard was dark, filled with the skeletal remains of crushed cars and twisted metal. James cut the engine 2 blocks away. There's a gap in the fence on the east side, he said. Used to sneak in there as a kid. If it's still there, we can get through. They moved quietly through the shadows, Lance limping slightly, his injuries still not fully healed. The gap was there, hidden behind overgrown weeds. They slipped through one by one, entering a maze of automotive corpses stacked 3 high. Motorcycles are usually kept near the office, James whispered. Follow me. They found Lance's Harley leaning against a corrugated metal shed, looking worse than Elliot remembered. The chrome was scraped, the front wheel bent, but it was intact. Lance knelt beside it, running his hands along the seat until he found the hidden seam. He pulled out a pocket knife and began working the lock. His jaw tightened. If the bike was officially impounded, someone could have accessed the report. That means we're not the only ones who know it's here. That's when they heard the engines. 3 motorcycles rolled through the scrapyard entrance, headlights cutting through the darkness like searchlights. The riders killed their engines and dismounted, spreading out to search. They knew, Lance hissed. Someone's been watching the yard. James grabbed Elliot's shoulder. Back to the fence. Now. But Lance wasn't moving. He was still working the compartment lock, his hands shaking with urgency. I'm almost through. 30 seconds. We don't have 30 seconds, James said. One of the riders was getting closer, his boots crunching on gravel. Lance finally forced the compartment open and pulled out a waterproof envelope, thick with documents. He shoved it inside his jacket just as a flashlight beam swept across their position. There! Someone shouted. They ran. James led them through the twisted labyrinth of wrecked vehicles, taking turns he remembered from decades ago. Behind them, the riders gave chase, their voices sharp with commands. Elliot's lungs burned as he sprinted, his father's hand gripping his arm to keep him moving. They reached the fence gap and squeezed through. James's truck was too far. They'd never make it before the riders circled around. But James had another idea. He led them into the dense woods bordering the scrapyard, where motorcycles couldn't follow. They crashed through underbrush for what felt like miles, finally emerging onto a residential street. James's truck was a 10-minute run from there, and they made it without seeing their pursuers again. When they were safely inside with the doors locked and the engine roaring to life, Elliot finally allowed himself to breathe. Grayson Mills, Lance said between gasps. We need to get there before they regroup. James didn't argue. He drove north, pushing the speed limit, checking the mirror constantly. Elliot sat in the back seat with Lance, watching him clutch the envelope like it was the most precious thing in the world. The necklace, Elliot said suddenly. Do you remember now? Who it belongs to? Lance pulled it from his pocket, and this time the memory was clear. My sister's daughter, Emily. She's 7. His voice caught. I've been keeping my distance from them for months. I knew if these people thought I had family they could leverage, they'd use it. So I stayed away even though it killed me. The necklace. She gave it to me for protection before I left. Said the butterfly would help me find my way home. 3 hours later, they pulled into Grayson Mills just as dawn broke over the horizon. The road-cursed clubhouse was a low brick building on the outskirts of town. Motorcycles lined up outside like soldiers standing guard. When Lance walked through the door, the room fell silent. A dozen men turned to stare at the ghost they thought was dead. One of them, a broad-shouldered man with a gray beard, stepped forward. "Lance." His voice was thick with disbelief. "We looked for you. We thought." "I know, Dex," Lance said. "But I'm here now, and I brought proof." He laid the envelope on the table and spread out its contents. Photos of men wearing road-cursed colors, men none of them recognized. Financial records showing payments to a shell corporation owned by a rival organization. Documents outlining a systematic plan to commit crimes in their name, drawing federal attention and destroying the club from the inside out. But as Lance explained everything, one member in the corner, a younger man with a snake tattoo on his neck, went pale. His hand moved toward the door. "Don't," Dex said quietly, his gun already drawn. "You're the one, aren't you? The one wearing our colors while selling us out." The traitor didn't deny it. In his eyes, there was only fear and resignation. The club acted swiftly, calling their lawyer and contacts within law enforcement who knew them to be legitimate. The evidence Lance brought was handed over, and within hours, warrants were being issued for the rival organization's leadership. Lance stepped outside where James and Elliot waited by the truck. The morning sun warmed his face. He could breathe again. "My sister lives 2 hours from here," Lance said. "I need to see Emily. Let her know I came home." James nodded. Then, unexpectedly, he extended his hand. "Thank you for finally giving me the truth about my brother." Lance shook it firmly. "I'm sorry it took 15 years. Before they parted ways, Lance removed one of his worn riding gloves and handed it to Elliot. "When you're old enough, you come find me. I'll teach you to ride properly." Elliot took it throat tight. His father, watching, didn't object. He managed a small smile. As Lance's motorcycle roared to life, Elliot stood holding the glove. The albums of motorcycles under his bed, the dreams of open road, they felt real now, possible. The journey home sometimes took detours, but it started with someone willing to help you find the way. Sometimes the people we're taught to fear are the ones who need us most. Elliot risked everything to help a stranger, and in return, he gave his father the closure he'd been searching for. What would you have done in Elliot's position? Would you have hidden Lance or turned him in? Drop your thoughts below, and if this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe to embrace the journey for more powerful tales of courage, redemption, and unexpected connections. See you in our next video.